Do we do some of the Lusitano?
Yeah.
Can I say an annoying thing at the very top?
Please.
Mostly for Sarah, but really everyone on this first figure. I think it's too fast. Here's what I'm hearing. Here's what I want.
Oh, you want speeches.
I want more between the first two notes.
I think I get you, but just to throw something back, I've been thinking that it's like I'm thinking more about like what happens before spe. So for me it'd be like speeches.
Maybe sort of along with Jesse's saying, but that right now it feels a little too just straightforwardly like da da, like, and if there was maybe a little bit more of that nuance, it would take a little weight away from it. I don't know, it feels like a heavy pickup or something.
Let me try a little more spe, I guess. There's something else.
One of the opportunities of being in a small ensemble like the X-tet is that we can speak up for ourselves. It's not only encouraged, it's a kind of a baseline requirement of successfully making music together is to be able to advocate for what you need in a moment. We've built a rapport over a number of years playing in Boston Baroque and strengthened it significantly this week here in Situate that allows us to speak candidly with each other about what we need, how we're feeling about what's happening, and yeah, we will hopefully continue to cultivate that. It's incredibly important for any successful musical endeavor.
Being able to dig into a piece of music in a quiet way, in a quiet place. How often do you get to just really stop and you're not underneath the union clock, you're not worried about having to cover all the other movements. So there we were able to really dive in, and to the point where we were putting our instruments down for 10, 15 minutes and just having a conversation about what does it mean when we talk about exploring colors in this piece. And you know, maybe to one person it actually means these shades of a color, a visual color, and to other people it's sounds, it's sound production, it's more of a sound world thing. And you know, in a normal rehearsal circumstance, that would be the kind of thing where maybe you could go on that tangent for a minute or two, but after that people would start to get a little fidgety, like, well, you know, we've got to get to the end of this piece and then we got to get to the next one. So that was just cherishing that, feeling this time slow down to this place where you could explore music on that level. As professionals, it seems counterintuitive, right? We do explore the deep detail in the music, but we do it at this as efficient of a pace as we possibly can. And you know, some things are lost by necessity in that.
I have to say that I was looking forward to this in a way that I feel like I haven't looked forward to something in a very long time. I think one of the really special things about this week actually was that we had this goal at the end of the week where the camera crew were coming in to record us both informally in rehearsal and then this concert. And then Antonio Oliart came to do the audio engineering, and he's brilliant. that's one of the things for me that made it kind of special, was that, we really, we needed to produce something special, and having that goal kind of heightens your creativity and expectations in a good way. I hate cameras and I hate film, but I like you guys. You can cut that out.
That's going in for sure.
X-tet interview, Jason.
What have you been doing this week?
We've been here this week at this incredible venue, this beautiful mid-century home, all of us together with the X-tet, a new chamber music arm of Boston Baroque, exploring repertoire, cooking dinners together, staying up late around the fire, planning, having vision talks about what we want this to be, and just soaking up the beauty of being in this incredible location where we're right next to the water down here on the South Shore, and surrounded by birds. It feels like a little miracle.
The most delightful surprise this week, although it was a sad one, was getting to know this motet by Vicente Lusitano, who is this 16th century Portuguese composer, probably of African descent. There's a whole story to tell there, and people are just sort of picking up his works and sort of starting to really come back to him again. The motet that we're playing, we started to play it, and none of us is real great with Latin, so we started to play it, and we were just thinking to ourselves, whoa, this piece it's got this sort of really special kind of dark feeling, like what's going on? These chords are sort of leaving this empty space between them, and what are these feelings, basically? And so we take a look at the texts, and it turns out that the text says, behold a once proud city, now like desolate and empty. There is no one left to comfort except you, our God. And we just all looked at each other and thought, oh my God, this is the story of the past year. These empty cities.
I went through a long period where I could not bear to look at my violin. I would attempt to practice and just get sad, knowing that I can change someone's day with the work that I do. And to have that taken away, incredibly painful. I have, thank goodness, found solace in my violin, in my playing, and there is something very special about playing this music on the equipment for which it was originally written. The violin speaks to me. It whispers things in my ear. It tells me what is possible, what is not possible. It suggests how to do things, and I really take care to listen to those suggestions, because I think there's a kind of magical connection to the past through this equipment that can really inform how we make music.
I think it's hard to keep your connection alive. At least for me, it's been a challenge. I think what I personally have done is to just channel my energy into other areas of my life and sort of forget that I'm a violinist for the most part. So that's been a really exciting thing about this week, was just, oh yeah, my creative self, the artistry coming alive again, and what that's like.
Yeah.
What's that?
Next one.
Next one.
Antonio, what take are you on?
Next one is 6.
Thank you.
Maybe our first notes.
X
this piece is incredibly special, and that was personally very gratifying to me. I'd argued for the inclusion of Lusitano on this week. Hearing the beauty of this music from a composer who's just incredibly little known was so exciting, and exactly the kind of thing I hope that we do more of with the X-tet. Yeah, I can't wait to have more people hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
I think we've all sort of had a sense of like, is this real? Is this happening? Because this week feels like another world. Just kind of the simple fact of being able to like prepare food in the same space, being sort of close to each other without constantly having that kind of magnetic thing. I guess it's an anti-magnetic thing where you think, okay, not too close, not too close. That is just a constant part of our lives now, to be able to just let go of that for this time and to really just be doing living room chamber music, which is that thing that musicians always want to do. We always want to be playing chamber music in the living room.
There we go.
Always. There we go. Very nice. Just like that.
All right. Yeah.
Look at that color.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Gorgeous.
Cheers.
All right.
Hey,
Thanks, Dad.
what's happening?
Yeah. Cheers.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's definitely unique considering the pandemic times that we've all been through for the last, what's now been a year. To have a week like this where we can all be together exploring a new project is just hugely exciting and rewarding, even just from the get-go.
I'm so sorry. Can we do that again? Is that gonna mess you guys up? Sorry.
But let's make sure we just to say it once. Make sure our headspace is just in like
I know.
a fun rehearsal
I know.
phase, because we will get
Yes.
to rehearse this later.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
don't worry about it.
Totally. It's just this beginning.
That's
for
fine,
me,
yeah.
it's like-
What did you mean to say?
Yeah. I'm in.
One of the surprises of the week for me has been just how amateur-ish, and I'll explain that in a moment, how amateurish the rehearsal process have been. And when I say amateur, I mean in the classic definition of one who loves. Amateur in the sense of like of a student also, of someone who is just there to learn and to grow and love what they're doing. It's not about the gig. It's not about the check. So that sensation from rehearsing with the X-tet this week is one I haven't really felt reliably since school. And that is a really special thing. I think if we can marry that sense of joy and exploration with our professional capacity and experience and insight, I think we'll have something very special. One of the reasons that the X-tet is working as well as it is, I think, is that we all have a sort of shared physicality. All of us happen to be musicians who move when they play. We seek a freedom as we play physically. And, that's not the only way to play music by any means. And I'm not even going to say it's the best way to play music, but it is really fun. And I look over at Christina and I see her look at me, and like there's a dance that starts to happen. Even Michael sitting at the cello, like he moves and he connects and engages with us. And yeah, the eye contact, the subtle shrug of a shoulder to cue an entrance. I mean, these are things that we've built up over years of playing together within the orchestra, which, I mean, thank goodness for Marty. He allows the Boston Baroque Orchestra to play in this way, to move and to breathe together. And so yeah, it's a natural transition to bring that to the X-tet.
One of the challenges in a chamber group, I think, is this sense of each voice being heard but being one at the same time. I really believe that like the ultimate is you're one but you're alone, and you're heard but you're together. And I think I felt we definitely accomplished that. And because of this particular group, each person does have a strong voice, but they're very easy about being heard or not heard, and clear when they want to be heard, and bringing that up. And so I think we work really well together in that way, to collaborate and to support each other when we need to, and then let someone shine or take over when you have to. And that felt very natural, which I was really pleased about.
A lot of chamber groups come together when they're quite young. You're sort of dealing with like your boundless energy and your passion, but also you have a lot more tolerance for certain kinds of conflict back then. And so now we're coming in using this entire different toolkit and learning what it means to sort of play music in this intimate way, and not just play music, but really have the in-depth discussion about stylistically like what's going on in each one of these worlds, which then like it's got like intellectual things going on, it's got historical things going on. So we're bringing all of that to the table, and just like how to kind of lean into things that feel important to you in a phrase or something historically that might feel important. It might feel very important to know, for instance, that Rosenmüller was a composer who had to leave Germany because of a scandal involving his assumed homosexuality. So he like runs across the Alps and heads down to Venice, and he's down there. But he's brought this kind of like this German dance freshness down with him, and just knowing all these different things about him, kind of thinking about what it's like to be a composer who has that sort of feeling of like looking over your shoulder. All of these little thoughts kind of find their way into phrases, they find their way into sound colors, and they just find their way into kind of what you bring to the musical moment. I expect this to keep changing over the course of our lives, and I kind of can't wait to see what will happen when we bring even a little bit more lived experience to the game.
that we get to explore art every day, and it's an art that's always alive. As a performance art, it's something that we get to tap into the history of how it was conceived, the compositions, and we get to tap into the history of how it was performed at the time, and we get to see where those worlds collide, and how that all collides with our modern world. It just gives a whole different perspective, and I think we're really, really lucky to get to be explorers of that in the X-tet and in Boston Baroque.
What's been really fun about this week is that Boston Baroque generally specializes in, music of the Baroque and the classical repertoire. And so, we're used to Handel, we're used to Corelli, we're used to sort of like the trio sonata repertoire, we're used to Beethoven symphonies, Mozart piano concertos. And so this week we wanted to hold on to that, but we also really wanted to push a lot at the edges of both. So even the Baroque works that we're doing are on the very early side. And of course, we're taking, some of the sensibilities that we would bring to sort of a typical Boston Baroque rehearsal, and particularly if we're playing something like Monteverdi. But we're sort of like turning back the clock just a little bit to when things were even a little bit crunchier, like a little bit more raw. And then on the other side, we're taking our classical sensibilities and kind of adding and adding and adding to them until you get to the richness of the early Romantic period. And I hope it'll help. I think it's entirely appropriate and right for this kind of core of expression that Boston Baroque sinks into, to have kind of all this fun stuff, kicking around at the edges.
You had asked to go back. I'm sorry.
We can go back either way.
I think you did say go on.
That's okay. Should we?
Play both endings at the same time.
Yeah. Should we?
Can we try to? Sorry,
You want to go more?
I just want to be together.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm just.
Not everything, but on a big downbeat arrival, it needs to be together.
I think it's just me, We chose 5 different works and some early Baroque, a classical piece, and then we chose a Schubert quartet and a Mendelssohn viola quintet. And part of what we want to do is really kind of, push the boundaries with these instruments and play later works than, for instance, we would in Boston Baroque. So we're all really excited about that. And I have been. And then today, it really hit me. Oh, yeah, this is why most people don't play this music this late on these instruments, because they really push back. Like, you can't just lay into them the way you can on a modern violin. Like if I was playing this on modern, you just give your all, and you can put as much pressure as you want. In fact, more pressure the better, close to the bridge, and it will give you back that sound. But these instruments, they revolt, and they say, hey, watch out, But it's counterintuitive, because it's more romantic music, so it's more emotional, and you kind of want to give more, but then you have to find a way to still give that emotional intensity, but without the same technique, find a sort of different way around it. And I found that really, I guess that was probably the most difficult part of the musical aspect of it, and wondering, well, maybe we shouldn't have chosen, these later works. And on the other hand, they really, these instruments bring something else to this music when you are playing on gut strings. It might not be as pure in certain ways, and it might crack, the string might crack, but you also get these overtones and colors that you wouldn't normally be able to get on modern violin.
when I think about playing some of these works like Schubert string quartet movement on a period instrument setup, obviously then we're talking about there's no shoulder rest to put the instrument on, there's no chin rest to hold it together here. And so there's moments when you might like to really shift and do other things to feel really colorful with it. And so you have to find new ways of feeling comfortable with the instrument being loose at times on your shoulder and being able to get around it and get up and down it. And sometimes the sensation is the thing's just going to fly off your shoulder. So it's tricky. It can be a challenge. And I think if we are really using period setup instruments, then wouldn't the composer have heard it maybe more like this anyway? And so how come we can't find immediately the right balance? But our ears and our brains are trained that when we hear Schubert, we think of it oftentimes from a modern playing perspective. And so that's a really interesting thing to explore. And I think that these kinds of questions are what the X-tet will continue to explore for years to come, hopefully, and make headway in finding new ways to tap into some of those unanswered questions of how do you really grab the right balance on these instruments for something like Schubert.
It's been a difficult year. I think that all the things that we would take for granted, like playing live concerts for live people, was suddenly ripped away from us.
What's the point in keeping all of this art that has been around for so long? What's the point in keeping it alive? What's the point in doing it again and again and again? Because it's meaningful in a timeless way. What we do as performers, it's not a static art. There's always new knowledge and scholarship and playing experience on how this may have been done, and then there's always new ways to explore.
It's been a hard year. That sense of togetherness is what animates us, what keeps us going. I think it's also put like a huge fire in us to make it work, to keep it going, to find whatever means necessary to get to the other side of this with everybody.
I think that this week with the X-tet certainly been by far the most intense musical experience of the last year, which has been nourishing in very profound ways.
Maybe the most intense musical moment of the week, I think, was our first day playing, reading through the Mendelssohn Quintet. I think we all felt it's just incredible, like, wow, you know, the possibilities and this music, and it's a very emotional movement. And I had actually pushed really hard to play that movement. There was a lot of back and forth and saying, well, it's really long, and I kept sort of coming back, maybe, because I just feel like it has such emotional variety and such depth in there. And I think we all felt, or I felt like this release when I played that movement. It was almost like a release from this whole pandemic of like all these emotions and feelings and the deeper parts of yourself that you've sort of pushed down a little bit, you know, suddenly could surface through this music, and it was very powerful for me.
Pretty much everyone I know is united in that desire to just make music happen, keep music alive, kind of no matter what, until we get there.
Thank you.